Welcome, everybody. I'm excited that you're here to join us. My name is Lloyd Taylor, and this session of ResearchCon 2024 is Fitness and Food, How to Make It Work for You. We're excited that you're here, and if by chance you joined the wrong session, you should stay, because this is going to be really good, we think. I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. First is this session is going to be recorded and will be available on the CF Foundation YouTube channel if you'd like to go back and listen to it again, or if for some reason you have to exit early. Apparently, they'll send you an email to notify you when that's ready. Secondly, the format for this is we'll talk for probably the first 45 or 50 minutes, and then we have some time for questions. So you'll see over on the right-hand side a chat box, comments where you can enter questions, and then we'll do our best to get to those at the end. Of course, we can't do like individual diagnoses or things like that, but general questions, we'll do our best to answer those, and we'll get to as many as we can. If you experience technological problems, you can visit the help desk in the expo room on the left-hand side of your screen. And then also, as far as community guidelines go, please remember to be kind, open-minded, respectful of each other's opinions. And if you need staff support at any time or want to report a violation, you can do so at the help desk. And then lastly, I just want to mention before we get started, this session is kind of a hybrid of some science and then some real life examples. We did our best to give you science behind it. We have a physical therapist and a dietitian that are joining us. They'll give you some examples of what to do. And then we also have two CF adults, myself being one of them, where we can give you ideas of what we have done before as well. So we're hoping that this is useful because you get some intellectual reasoning behind what we're trying to do and then some real world examples of how to do it. So with that, we'll actually introduce ourselves, and since it's apparent that I like to hog the mic, I'll go first since I'm already started. Here's a little about my life. You can see a picture of my family. That's my wife and I. I like to say that we have a storybook romance. I've been married 26 years, and she's amazing. She's a nurse, and she is God's gift to me for sure. The picture in the bottom right is our family. That's the one you post on social media when you want everybody to think that your family's like idyllic and perfect. And then the one up top where my older daughter has my son in a headlock is more like what our family is like. So a little bit of my backstory. I was born in 1975, so I'm 48 years old. I'll be 49 at the end of this month. I was born actually in Berlin, Germany, and then moved to Montana with my parents when I was 2 months old. And here in Montana, it's not exactly the bastion of CF research, especially in 1975. And so they didn't catch my CF for a bit. I was 6 months old, and I gained literally no weight. I was either 1 ounce more or 1 ounce less than when I was born. And my mom took me to the doctor's office and mentioned to one of the nurses there that when she kissed my head, it was so salty that it burned her lips. And that was the trigger. That nurse knew the old wives' tale that could be cystic fibrosis. And so they figured that out and diagnosed me with CF. There was no history of it anywhere in my family. I was my parents' first kid. So, and my two sisters, neither one of them have CF, my two younger sisters. So that's kind of started us on the CF journey. And my mom will tell the story that they told her that I wouldn't live to be 2 or 3 years old because they caught CF late and they knew it was a terrible prognosis. But my mom was determined just to do whatever she thought was best to raise me. So one of the things early on, since we're talking about exercise, she was training to be a firefighter. She's actually the first paid woman firefighter in the history of the state of Montana. But she would run to train, and she would make me run with her. And it's one of my earliest memories. I was probably 4 or 5 years old. And I would run behind her and whine the entire time because I thought she was trying to kill me. Literally, that's what I would tell her. And she told me later she knew I was fine if I had enough breath to whine. Then I must be doing all right. And then she just proceeded to put me in every single sport I ever showed interest in. So I've played hockey, I'm not a good hockey player. I played football. I was actually the only third stringer on my junior high football team. Basketball, track, you name it. And then I went on to college and graduated from Montana State in engineering and got a job in manufacturing. Worked full-time for 15 years, and I loved it. It was so fun. I had a great time, and then got super sick and couldn't work anymore. And was out of work for a bit, and then kind of slowly recovered. And so I worked part-time at a church. I was a pastor there. And now I work part-time overseeing finances for the church that we're currently a part of. As far as exercise goes now, I love to do family hikes and family bike rides, and I still love to run. That's a picture of me. I have to do everything exercise-wise now with oxygen on, but I still love to exercise because there's a part of me that just thinks I'm beating back CF when I do it. So that's a little bit about my story. Now I want you to meet the other CF adult that we have on our panel, and that's Acelia. Acelia, I'll turn it over to you. And she will join us any minute. We know it.
Hello, guys. My name is Acelia Collins. I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis in 1996. I was growing up during that time frame with little none known about cystic fibrosis. Philadelphia doctors mentioned that I was not going to pass a certain age. I was afraid. I wonder if I will ever live the life expectancy with cystic fibrosis. My mother made sure I stayed active daily, rather if it was family activities, eating out, or sports. My favorite sport was track in high school. I worked 2 full-time jobs and I am an entrepreneur. The best part about my life is my storybook romance with my significant other and kids. I enjoy spreading knowledge, wisdom, spiritual meanings of life, and also supporting the cystic fibrosis community by speaking at virtual events and on other platforms. On my free time, I mostly spread awareness nationwide by living with my cystic fibrosis on many platforms, despite the challenges of cystic fibrosis. I approach life with positivity and resilience. I embrace my life living with cystic fibrosis, enjoying staying active, meditating, and living and loving being creative by cooking and making vegan meals and finding happiness in every moment. Right here, this is all my family members, which is my sisters, my brothers, my significant other, the kids, my nieces and nephews. And as you can tell, they look like they are very sweet, but they are a handful, but very loving. And I will pass this down to Shannon.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shannon Stamper. I am the CF dietitian in Boise, Idaho, at the CF Center of Idaho. I've been here for 9 years now, almost, and I have a big interest in this topic. I was in sports growing up, so I love just like exercise, nutrition stuff. And I will, I don't know where my slide is, but I'm going to pass it off to Jenny, who will introduce herself and then get us started.
Hi, I'm Jenny Walzel, Jennifer, if you ever see it written out. Again, there's your slide, Shannon. There's mine. Okay, so this is a picture of my family, my little nephew there, and my parents and sisters. I do live in Austin, Texas, and I'm with the Dell Children's Medical Center there, and I do pediatric CF physical therapy. But with that, we'll just go ahead and get started. So some of you may know, in those who have cystic fibrosis, exercise can affect your lung function. Although somewhat indirectly, exercise can be used as a form of airway clearance. We're making this work. I'm just going to keep going. Exercise can be used as a form of airway clearance, just like PEP and postural drainage, and all of those can be used. But exercise can also have an effect on our nutrition status because resistance exercise leads to gaining muscle mass. And these two ways, therefore, exercise can affect your lung function. So today we're going to be focusing on the nutrition aspect. And typically the nutrition status is measured in body mass index by the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation with a recommendation of greater than 50% for children. And then we start using the regular numbers of 22 or 23 in adults greater than that. So perfect. All right. So body mass index is just one measure of body composition. For those who may not be as familiar with the term, body composition is simply defined as the relative percentage of your body mass that is fat or fat-free tissue. So fat-free tissue includes everything else, like your bones, your muscles, your nerves, everything. So this relative percentage can be measured in a variety of ways. Body mass index, or BMI, would be included with anthropomorphic measurements, along with calipers and using circumferences. These are the fastest, easiest, cheapest methods, but they're also the least reliable. Densitometry is another way to measure. However, it's typically not used outside of research due to the heavy cost and inconvenience. For example, one of them is underwater weighing, and so you would have to be completely submerged head to toe in water. And most people don't want to do that on their clinic visits. The DEXA scan is currently the gold standard for body composition testing. It can also be used for bone density readings in CF frequently. However, the same test that provides the detailed body composition analysis is at a much higher cost. And then lastly, the bioelectrical impedance analysis, or BIA tests, they're also fast and accurate, but they're also cost prohibitive due to the need for the machine. It's pretty costly, but that is the one we use in our clinic. So in people with CF, nutrition status matters for lung function. So specifically, there's a direct correlation between BMI and FEV1, with a higher BMI indicating a higher lung function. But in the general population, a higher BMI is associated with hypertension, metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, stroke, cardiovascular disease, and dyslipidemia. So why? Why is this a thing? Really, the why is too complex to understand clearly and simply. It's like, do we have the chicken or the egg? Do we have poor nutrition status because we have poor lung function, or is the poor nutrition contributing to the poor health and therefore poor lung function? We just don't know. But why do CF centers use BMI? It's free. It's easy to calculate. This is the calculation right here. It's easy to understand, but it was really made to analyze populations of people and not individuals. For example, the population of the state of Texas, what's the average BMI? You can look at it that way. But whenever you're looking at a person, it doesn't necessarily tell you the same thing. So Acelia, I know that you've had some issues with weight discussions in clinic and your body mass index. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I always struggled growing up with my weight, to the point where growing up, I always stayed at 66 pounds in middle school and even in high school, to the point where I had to get a feeding tube to put my weight on. So that went a long way after high school. That's when I started picking up my weight. And I've been trying to reach my goal, which is 100 pounds, and I have not met my quota yet. But 2024, I'm going to be determined to meet that goal. But on the weight scale, I try to impact a lot of nutrients and a lot of calories to where I eat fatty foods. And sometimes, even when I lose my appetite, I still try to fit in some type of fatty meal once out that time frame. That way I am still taking in the nutrients in the fatty foods, but I also take a lot of enzymes. That way I can put that weight on. And I will pass it back to Jenny.
Thank you so much for that. All right, so next slide. So these two individuals have the same weight and height, so they actually have the same BMI. If they had the body composition testing, however, such as the DEXA or the BIA test, which I was talking about earlier, we would find that the person on the right has much more muscle mass than the individual on the left. One of the main advantages to body composition testing over just looking at BMI is being able to see what the person's weight is made of, with higher muscle mass being more beneficial to people with CF than without CF. So next slide. So there is an impact of muscle on those with CF. So there was a study done and they found that with lower fat-free mass, and in this case, we're just going to say muscle mass, was associated with a lower percent predicted FEV1 in the first second and more pulmonary exacerbations in adults with CF. Also, adults with lower fat-free mass and a normal BMI, so lower muscle and a normal BMI, had lower pulmonary function than those with a normal BMI and normal fat-free mass. So basically what this is saying is that regardless of your BMI, regardless of your weight, the muscle is what really matters for lung function and exacerbations rather than the weight. Next slide. So this is interesting. So then we come to the obesity paradox. So the relationship between body composition and lung function, specifically lean muscle mass, is due to the impact of the respiratory muscle strength, as well as just like general physical well-being. But a 2022 study found that FEV1 was higher in people with CF who were overweight or obese. They found those to have fewer exacerbations and found no evidence of harmful effects like we would see in the general population. So in theory, so this obesity paradox, and the theory of this outcome is that the excess weight from that high BMI is actually probably from the muscle mass, as well as because you have a higher weight, you have increased energy requirements during chronic inflammation, and so those are lower. But so Shannon, body composition testing is better. Why don't we use it in every clinic?
Yeah, so we can't use body composition testing in every clinic, and that's just because it frankly is not available in every clinic because it's pretty expensive for the clinics to buy. So everyone, you get weighed and then the computer calculates your BMI. That's free. Like that's technically free. And no one has to do any extra work. No one has to pay anything extra, but they got body composition machines are pretty spendy. There's also limited data on benefits for really young children. So if you're seen at an only pediatric center, that clinic would have to weigh the pros and cons if you can't do all the patients. We also don't do body composition testing on anyone struggling with an eating disorder, a history of an eating disorder, or even significant body image issues. Because while we try to focus on the muscle content that someone has, like how much muscle they have, it does report the percent fat on the result sheets. And that can be really triggering for someone with any of those conditions. We also try and focus on more trends than stressing about the specific numbers, which kind of goes back to weight. Like we can track trends with weight, but it's harder to track what exactly is part of that weight. Like if you've been doing an exercise routine, and you feel like maybe you should be losing weight if you're trying to, but you're actually gaining weight, so we can actually see if some of that is muscle. And just how you feel in your body. A couple questions that I get asked are, well, people use exercise to lose weight. So how can I exercise if I'm actually trying to gain weight? Like, won't that be bad for me? And I also get a lot of questions about exercising with diabetes. So I'm going to talk about those two. Next slide, please. So preventing weight loss while exercising. Like Acelia said, we really need to prioritize those calorie-dense foods when you are able to. So if you don't have a very large appetite, you need to get more bang for your buck, so to speak. So like nuts and nut butters, seeds, like sunflower seeds, avocados, cooking oil, just use a little bit more than you usually would, dried fruits, whole grains, full fat dairy, and eating regular meals. A lot of people say, oh, I'm just not a breakfast person, which is fine. Some people are just not breakfast people. If gaining weight is really what you want to do, and you're really trying to do that, taking advantage of all of those opportunities to eat is really important. And that includes planning ahead by packing snacks. If you have a long work day and you say, like, I don't eat lunch. I don't eat lunch when I'm at work because I just don't have time. Put some snacks at your desk. If you have a desk, like make a drawer full of snacks. Like, I mean, I have a drawer full of snacks. So I'm never just going too many hours without eating. So really maximizing that. And just stay hydrated. Staying hydrated is just so good for a lot of things. So if you really want a water goal, ask your dietitian to give you a specific water goal, because it varies for everyone. But just, yeah, really try and stay hydrated in general. Next slide, please. Exercising with CFRD. There have been studies recently that have shown exercise leads to better blood sugar control, which can and the better blood sugar control leads to this increase in fat-free mass, or the muscle. So if we have that increase in fat-free mass, we can control our blood sugar better. Next slide, please. Okay, but what does that look like in the real world? So our muscles, the reason why exercise lowers blood sugar is because our muscles use carbohydrates or sugar for fuel. So what that means is you might, and this is in the CFRD booklet, you might need to take less rapid acting insulin if you take that with your pre-workout snack. So, but definitely discuss this with your CF team or your endocrinologist team before you do this. And Lloyd, I know you've had some issues with this in the past. Can you touch on that for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I've been diabetic for maybe 12 years or 14 years. I have to count iterations of insulin pumps back to get the right date range. And when I first started, it was literally like you had a little pen and you'd kind of count carbs and then poke yourself. And I mean, I remember my diabetes doctor explaining to me that my couple of options if I was going to exercise is either to eat something and take less insulin so that my blood sugar, there'd be more glucose in my blood to essentially fuel me when I exercise. So my blood sugar could go high, but exercise would level that out. Or that I would have to eat something on purpose to basically bump my blood sugar up to be able to use that glucose while I was exercising. So I heard that. This is probably like what most patients do. I heard that, but I didn't really register it very well. And I remember I was working out with my wife at home, and she's a nurse, thank God. I wasn't feeling super awesome, so I told her, I'm just going to go sit down. And so I went to the kitchen and sat down in a chair, and it was probably like 30 seconds. And she said, "Are you doing okay?" And I couldn't really answer. And she came around the corner, and I kind of could whisper, "I think my blood sugar is low." And we checked it. It was like, I think 42, which is the lowest I'd ever been. But in that moment, it was very interesting because it was like, I actually knew what was happening. I knew my blood sugar was low. I knew I needed to check it. I knew I needed to get sugar somehow, but I actually just could not get my body to move to do it, which I'd never had that experience. And it scared me, probably in a good way. And so now I've learned a lot more how to fuel my body for exercise. And it's not even just a diabetes thing. I realize it helps my body overall. I feel like I do better performing in exercise, and I recover easier afterwards. But I will, like, I kind of joke that sometimes it's a fun excuse to eat crap food that's going to jack up your blood sugar. You just got to make sure that you go exercise afterwards, and then it levels it out. And it really does. It's pretty amazing. I mean, I love to eat oatmeal, and that'll normally send my blood sugar up to 200 without insulin. But if I eat oatmeal and then 15 minutes later go exercise, even without insulin, my blood sugar will stay 130, 140 at the high point and then come down. So, but as Shannon said, like, you have to work with, this was working with my endocrinologist once I got serious about it, to know, like, well, how much insulin should I dose and what does that look like? And so I like the next bullet that says eating a carbohydrate rich snack is smart, even if your blood sugar is more than 100, which is totally true. Today, actually, I went for a run and my blood sugar was 132 before I left, and I still ate something. And when I got back, my blood sugar was 84 because I needed extra. And I was a 24-minute run. It wasn't even that long, but it definitely used up what was there. So, and then checking blood sugars before, during, and after workouts. It's easier now because I have a continuous glucose monitor, and my phone will beep me if my blood sugar is trending the wrong way, which I carry with me. But back in the olden days, I literally would stop mid-exercise and check my blood sugar, because I realized that once I started to feel it, it was too late. Like, it was way too low already, and I was going to be a hurting puppy. Low blood sugars can happen even up to 12 to 24 hours post-workout. That actually has never happened to me. So Shannon, maybe you can talk a little bit to that, because I'm curious to hear, like, how that actually happens.
Yeah. That's so sorry. Once you stop working out, your muscles don't. They kind of keep working out for a little bit. So they continue to kind of eat up those carbs or those sugar for fuel. And this 12 to 24 hour time frame is long. And that's not going to happen to everyone, but it's mostly it's a caution that it really can happen. And once you start checking your blood sugars more while you're working out and kind of knowing what your body does, try to have a carbohydrate containing snack before bed on exercise days just to prevent those overnight lows. And if you wake up and you've never had that, you can adjust things with your team. But definitely, if you're starting a new exercise routine or a harder exercise routine, definitely try and have a snack before bed just to prevent those lows. Now I'm going to hand it over to Jenny so she can talk about how to actually gain some muscle.
Thank you. Yeah, so we've established that muscle mass is the goal, right? We're trying to gain muscle, but how do we actually do that? So it takes consistent resistance training to see true strength gains. So the American College of Sports Medicine recommends working out 2 to 3 days a week for each major muscle group with a 48-hour rest in between. So the intensity should be moderate, which is about 60 to 80% of your max, but strength gains have been seen with light resistance training, which would be like 40 to 50% of your max, and those who are just starting out working out, who were sedentary. Although no specific amount of time is required, there's a general recommendation of just doing 3 sets of 10 reps with a rest of 2 to 3 minutes in between sets. And speaking of time, it takes 12 weeks or 3 months of consistent resistance training to see actual gains in strength. And by that, science, I guess, measures muscle strength by like hypertrophy or muscle mass, like actually gaining size of your muscles. And then also just knowing that there's a huge hormone influence with testosterone playing the main role. This is why teenage boys gain muscle very rapidly, and adolescent females tend to gain fat over muscle during puberty. So don't lose heart. It may sound difficult, but it can be done. So on this next slide, I made an example exercise program. So this is just a general exercise program. You would definitely want one to fit yourself. But for this program, what you would want to do is choose a weight that would challenge you, but one that you can complete all the recommended repetitions with good form. So you're going to alternate muscle groups with days of rest in between. So on this, I tried to include both body weight and free weight exercises. So that's what the BW and FW is on there. But most of the body weight exercises you could add weight to. And then later on, I'm going to discuss some other options when choosing your workouts, but this should just be used to get you started. So day 1 is back and shoulders. So we have Supermans, I's, T's, Y's. We have bent over rows and overhead press, as well as reverse flies. On day 2, we have legs and core. So we're going to have step ups, planks, heel raises, walking lunges, goblet squats, Russian twists. There you go. And all right, day 3, chest and arms. So we have tricep dips, push-ups, bench press, overhead extensions. Day 4, we're going to finally get a rest. Day 5, we're going to do the high intensity interval training. So we're going to include jump ropes in that, burpees, and then all of those previously listed body weight exercises. And then day 6, we're going to do a full body workout. So you can pick 3 from the other exercises. Okay, so more ideas for exercise. So I came up with a couple questions that you might be having. So like, what if you don't have a whole lot of time? So in that case, you can combine muscle groups with your cardio and things such as cycling, rowing, high intensity interval training. So HIIT is that for short. So HIIT is actually one of my favorites to recommend to my patients because it can be done anywhere. It combines cardio and resistance training, and you don't necessarily need equipment to do it. If you've done burpees, you know that they're a good workout. You don't need equipment to do them. They're rough. So let's say too, you don't have a gym. You can use your body weight to get started and use simple objects around your home for weights. So water bottles can be used as 1 pound weights. You can use stairs for step ups, etc. Is it just too boring? So me personally, I cannot go to a gym and just sit there and lift weights. It's just not what I can do. So this is whenever I say get involved in recreational hobbies, go rock climbing, rowing, paddleboarding, community sports like soccer, kickball, or volleyball. Those are all excellent ways of getting in your exercise. Don't forget, yard work counts as exercise. If you've ever carried mulch bags across a lawn, you know that that's a workout. There's also probably several things that you're doing that count as exercise that you just never thought about. And then lastly, know your resources. So there are grants available for exercise, and you just need to ask your care team about them. So don't leave money on the table if there's something that you want to do. So Lloyd, you lead a very active lifestyle. Would you mind speaking on how you've included exercise in your daily life?
Sure. Yeah. And I'll let Acelia talk after as well, because she's going to have a different perspective. I have done gym things. I do like classes there. I was just chuckling to myself because of your burpee comment. Since I wear oxygen to work out, I have tried burpees at the gym, but from time to time they wear me out. So then I lay down and I'm afraid people think I died because I'm on oxygen on the ground. So it's not the best plan. Anyway, really, maybe the perspective that I want to share is exercising as a family. It's one of the things that my mom did early on when she made me run with her. And it's one of the things that as my kids, I have 3 of them, and my wife have grown as a family. We exercise together. So we hike together. We ride bikes together. Both of my girls, my daughter who's 20 played basketball all through high school, and my younger daughter who's a 6th grader is starting to play basketball. And I'll play with them. Mostly I'm just the post-up defense. I can't do a lot of running at this point, but just the idea that like we exercise as a family. So I think if I was a dad and I had a CF kid, I would just figure out how can I exercise with my kids. So I'm not telling them you've got to exercise, but we're doing it together. It's been helpful because my family then they help share in the burden of exercise at times, bringing snacks and carrying those on hikes for me. But we do it as a family together, and it makes it enjoyable. So that's a little bit about my exercise history. Acelia, do you want to share your perspective? What do you do?
Yes. So with my workout, I normally like to do it indoors, which is at home, only because of the germs that is inside the gyms. And with cystic fibrosis, we are very subject to our immune system. So I try to do it inside. And I pretty much wake up like maybe 3 hours early, and I get me a bite, the snack, or make me a shake, and I'll do my treatments, and then I'll work out before that time. But I do give me some time frame. That way I can get me a shake or maybe some peanuts, and I'll do something inside doors for about 25 to 30 minutes. It all depends on how I feel. And I will pass this back to Jenny.
Thank you. So just one final plug for exercise. It also has several other benefits, and this goes for all populations, not just CF. Increasing bone density, reducing risk of pain or other musculoskeletal disorders, and it can prevent or improve symptoms of anxiety and depression. It is commonly said that if exercise was a pill, everyone would take it. So now Shannon will speak more on how to fuel your body to get the most out of your workout.
Yeah. What the research recommends is about 3 to 4 hours before your workout to have a full meal. So that includes a carbohydrate, a fat, a protein, a vegetable. However, what if you're like Acelia and work out first thing in the morning? they recommend about 30 to 90 minutes before. So for most people, right when you get out of bed, because if you're waking up before work to go exercise, you're usually wanting to sleep in as late as you can. So right when you roll out of bed, have a little, about 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrate. And on the next slide, I will explain what that looks like. But we want to avoid protein, fat, and fiber in this pre-workout, right before you workout phase, because we want those carbohydrates to get into your body and into your muscles quickly so that it can use them quickly. If we have the protein, fat, or the fiber in there, they will get absorbed more slowly and they won't be as effective for helping you have enough energy. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are examples for that early morning workout to just eat super quick right when you get out of bed, before you start working out or on your way to the gym. It's just going to be applesauce or applesauce fruit puree pouches, fruit smoothie. You can even pre-make that the night before. Canned fruit in its own juice. So not the heavy syrup, but its own juice. Pretzels, you could get some carb and salt there. And also with these, the sports drinks, the gels, the energy chews. So it's all quick stuff to give you the quick carbohydrates. And then after the workout, next slide, please, will look a little bit more meal-like. So during your workout, you don't really need food unless you're like Lloyd and almost fall over, and then you might need a little bit of carbs to keep you going. So if you're checking your blood sugars and you're fine, you don't need food throughout, but you do need to hydrate, okay? If you are doing an activity longer than 90 minutes, so going on a super long hike or something like that, bring something small, those quick carbohydrate sources, that's about 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrate, to eat at that 90-minute mark, just to kind of keep your energy levels up, keep your blood sugar steady. And then after your workout, so that's where we're going to put the protein. So as soon as possible, eat another about 60 to 30 grams of carbohydrate and 20 to 30 grams of protein. But what does that actually mean? Those are just numbers. So what does that mean? The picture on the right is an example. It has about 46 grams of carbs and 32 grams of protein. So the protein is in the eggs, that peanut butter, and the milk right there. So you don't have to eat exactly this many grams of carbs or grams of protein. It's just a general guideline to kind of get you in the right direction and kind of be aware of what foods have protein, what foods are carbohydrates. And if you need more help with that, definitely just ask your dietitian at your clinic and they can help you with that for sure. Next slide, please. So just examples of post-workout things to eat. So if you're in a hurry, you can pre-make stuff and throw it in your freezer and just individually wrap them and grab them, like these little muffins here with berries. So they've got fruit, they've got oats, they've got, we will put the recipe on either the resource thing or in the comments. But so they're not very high in protein. So you can either add protein powder to the recipe, you can add chia seeds to the recipe, walnuts or nut butter, just add a huge scoop of peanut butter right into the recipe before you bake them, or you can just enjoy them with some hard-boiled eggs or a glass of milk. That chicken burrito bowl, that's more of like a dinner option, and then these banana protein pancakes, which we will also share the recipe for, but that's just another way to get some carb, some protein, and some produce. So snacks. I'm not going to go over all of these snacks, but these are just go-to ideas that you can come back to these slides for ideas of things to just pack with you, whether you're going to work, on a road trip, just out for errands. I like snacks all day long, so I sometimes bring snacks on my errands. So just some examples of things that you could do. Next slide, please. And I also really wanted to touch on salt and hydration really quick. It doesn't have a lot to do with muscle, but it does have a lot to do with exercise. People with CF lose 3 to 5 times more salt in their sweat than people without CF. Some adults that I've come across, they say, yeah, I mean, I salt on my foods. I don't know why though. I've been told to do that since I was little. So this is why if you sweat, if you can see your sweat, you need more salt. That has decreased a little bit if you're on Trikafta, but work with your CF team. We still really don't know a lot about what that means and what people's needs are because it's still so new. If you are in a hot or humid climate, whether you live there, whether you're vacationing, and you have CF, you will lose 10 times more salt in your sweat than like a family member without CF. So please keep that in mind if you are sweating at any time. There is a list to the left of things that your body might be telling you that you are low in salt. One thing that is not on that list that I frequently come across is constipation, actually. And then let's see. I think that's it. We will be happy to take any questions from anyone.
Thanks, Shannon. Yeah, this has been fun. I'm excited for the questions too. I've seen a few in the comments. Maybe we'll start with this one and any of you can answer. As a CF patient, what if I'm just trying to get started, whether it be an exercise routine, I don't even know what to do, but the idea of building muscle is something that's kind of been perked in this conversation, or how does the diet part need to play into that? Like, how would I start and just get going in this? Anybody have any thoughts?
I can start just with the diet part. I would say, look at where you're at. If you eat 1 vegetable a month, your goal is not going to be to get to 5 a day. So look where you're at, be realistic with your goals. Don't start with overall diet. Just start with 1 or 2 things that you can focus on. What can I eat right before my workout to make me feel better while I'm working out? And what can I eat after my workout to help fuel my muscles? So I would just start with those and just the easiest way possible. Don't worry about the numbers that were on those slides. Just worry about, am I getting carbs before? Am I getting protein and carbs after?
Also, similarly with starting slow, like you said, setting realistic goals. So you don't want to jump in the gym and get injured because we're trying to lift too heavy too fast. Give yourself time to get used to a workout routine. Start with smaller weights, work your way up to bigger weights. I see a lot of people, get injured because they go too hard too fast. And then you can't work out the same way. So it kind of defeats the purpose. So I would just say start small, and find something you like. Just anything you like to do. Be good.
That's good. It's good. Acelia, do you have anything to add, or are you good? Okay. My favorite part about that is that there's a person out there that eats 1 vegetable a month. So actually, it's my children's wish. Okay. Next question. As we enter the warmer months and Georgia's heat and humidity are already heavily on the rise, what are some tips for staying motivated to exercise in the heat?
That's a really common one. I live in Texas, so I get that question a lot, especially with the kids that I see in CF clinic, because their parents are like, how can I tell them to go play outside when it's 108? And I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. But there's plenty of things you can do inside. So at least for children, I believe Beam CF Youth is still free and accessible. So that's online videos that you can do indoors. Same with there's so many, there's yoga videos on YouTube, stuff to get you started with exercise. I do understand the sweat aspect of it in the heat. Honestly, swimming is an excellent way to build muscle and stay cool at the same time. I hope that answered the question. Acelia, do you have anything?
I'll put in another plug for salt because I see adults and kids. I see a lot of people with CF who say they're heat intolerant. meaning when they go out into the heat, they can't stay there very long, like their siblings or like their spouses. And then people with CF just need so much more salt than they think. Like, I'm adding it a lot, but in those summer months, you really, really need a lot. So try just adding more salt and see if that helps.
Sunflower seeds and nuts help tremendously.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you're getting, especially if you eat nuts with salt. I know from personal experience, I don't do salt enough. And it really does help you feel better when you're done, feel better during, and feel better when you're done.
Yeah.
The other thing, and listen, I'm in Montana. We're not humid at all. My goodness, we're about as arid as the Sahara here. But it gets really hot. And again, I don't have the same stamina my family does. So we shift everything. And so I make sure if I'm going to go for a run, I go in the morning. And then we'll actually do like family movie time, not at night, but in the day when it's super hot. And then at the night, we'll go for family walks or something like that. So, I mean, it's hard because you're flopping your schedule all around, but we do that on purpose because it just literally in the heat of the day, even though it's not humid here, and humidity makes it even worse, I know, it's unbearable to be able to exercise any length of time. So, okay, good. Next question. Somebody wrote in, for me, stretching can sometimes have more of an effect in terms of lowering my blood sugar than cardio or strength training. Is there a reason for this?
I'm wondering if it's stretching after a workout or just stretching in general, like doing yoga or just stretching instead of working out. If it's stretching after a workout, that would make sense to me because it's just kind of like your body's kind of catching up and using that glucose. But if it's just stretching in general, yoga, interesting.
Yep.
You know what? I don't know the answer to that. That is super interesting.
Yeah. Unless you're like aggressive stretching, because you get your heart rate up. I don't know if that's a thing, but
I mean, she's in the yoga, so maybe.
Well, and I don't know because, like, I mean, if you're stretching to the point, so stretching, right, like you're elongating the muscles and you're kind of creating micro tears. So I don't know if maybe your body's just using that glucose to heal those micro tears. But again, I'm stretching. That's beyond me.
No pun intended there. Well done. Okay, somebody wrote in, I have a 1-year-old. Any ideas of snacks and different options for toddlers?
Yeah, there is actually, there are some great lists available to clinics. I'm talking really slow because I'm trying to remember if those are available just to the general public on cff.org or if they're just available for us to download. But definitely next time you go to clinic, or maybe I can post it somewhere after this. But there are already pre-made toddler lists for stuff like this.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. When do you recommend structured weight training in the gym for a person with CF if a child wants to go to the gym with their parents?
Okay, so 2 things with that. I would say it would be the same for any child, not necessarily with CF or without. But I'd say around puberty, so like maybe around 12 years old. I don't think there's any harm in them going a little bit earlier. But so again, because of the hormone influence with muscle building, you're really not going to build muscle in a child. I mean, you can some, but you're not going to get like big strength gains through like lifting weights. So it really should look more like play-based, like climbing trees. That's great resistance training, like jumping rope, doing things like that. And then, yeah, probably around 12-ish, you could probably start lifting some smaller weights. Yeah,
that's cool. I actually, first season I did lift weights at home, and my kids would want to come down and join me. I realized like they were so young, they couldn't lift anything. But I thought, well, if I could teach them form, then when they're ready, and believe me, I'm not exactly an expert in form, but at least it's something. And again, like you said, I try to make it fun. Usually my workout ended up being a coaching session and then sometimes an argument, because that's what parenting is like. And I didn't get a whole lot of exercise myself, but even if they're like, if you are a weightlifting parent and they are just so excited to go with you, geez, let them go and just make it fun. But I think Jenny's point of don't expect a lot of strength gains pre-puberty, because it sounds like that's not really likely to happen. Next question. As someone who is into fitness and wants to build muscle but is on a very strict diet by GI orders, do you have any advice for me?
So it's hard to answer that without knowing like exactly what your diet is and what the restrictions are. But I would say if it's by the GI clinic, I would go to the GI, like ask them for specific examples and just take those guidelines that were on the slide, like the 30 to 60 grams of carb, the whatever grams of protein, and try and make those work for you with the foods that you can eat. So just take those, and just without knowing what foods you can and cannot eat, it's hard, but I would just take those gram recommendations, and you can even use Google for that too, in terms of what foods have this many grams of carbohydrate, which group like have this many grams of protein, and see what you can eat that's on that list and not.
Similarly, I realized that I didn't actually say this earlier, but to build muscle, maybe we did say it, you do have to have a calorie surplus. So like depending on what your diet is, if it's like a lower calorie, higher calorie, whatever it may be. But you're still gonna need the nutrition to build the muscle. So, but it shouldn't restrict your workout necessarily. You should still be able to work out normally.
That's good. Acelia, do you have anything you want to add there? You don't have to. I just want to make sure. I would say this. I like to run, and so I would go to my CF clinic and say, hey, how can I get better? And when I talked in generalities, they talk in generalities because I'm not giving them specifics. So when I went to them this last year and I said, I want to run a half marathon, and I think I don't know the nutrition to do it, and I don't know the pace, they gave me a specific eating plan based on when I was going to run and when I was going to work out. So I think, like, kind of tagging on to Shannon's comment of going to the GI clinic, I don't know if you can go with a specific goal. This has to be, wants to build muscle. So like, I want to build like 10 pounds of muscle or something. I don't know if there's a goal, but I want to do this specifically. How do I reach that? They can get very specific then in terms of what that looks like. I found that at least as an anecdotal option for you. Okay, next question. Any specific exercise or nutrition suggestions? Now I'm slurring my words. Any specific exercise or nutrition suggestions for people post-transplant?
I would say nutritionally, not really, other than regular transplant eating recommendations, which if you've had a transplant, I expect that you have been counseled a lot on foods you shouldn't eat post-transplant. But a lot of post-transplant people end up getting diabetes too. So I would just say the diabetes factor mostly.
Honestly, I haven't done research in this area, really. I haven't had too much experience, but I wouldn't think that it would be too different post-transplant for exercise recommendations, and other than just going at your own pace, which is the same advice I would give for anybody. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, now I'm going to derail this, hopefully. Shannon, I'm just more curious because I have not had a transplant. Are there things that you have to avoid eating wise because they interfere with drugs, similar to I know we can't eat grapefruit with trikafta? Is that I know, and you can be general here. I'm not trying to, but just for my information.
Yeah. So super general. It has mostly to do with the anti-rejection meds.
Yeah.
And how those lower your immune function. So it's kind of like, cook all your meat all the way, don't get your steaks rare, make sure you're using good hand hygiene, kind of stuff like that. If you're eating at a restaurant, make sure it's a reputable restaurant where people are washing their hands in the back, and kind of stuff like that. So there is a longer list, but mostly to keep you from getting sick.
Okay.
And same with kind of what Acelia was saying earlier with going to the gym. I would think same thing, just infection control, just wipe your stuff down, with shared equipment, be careful about going to the gym, going into swimming pools. I don't know if that's concern or not.
Or to restaurants, because it could be
Or to
germs that you're not disinfecting as well.
Yeah. Okay, good. I have one question that I actually thought of. We'll get to some more in the chat, but how do you stay motivated to exercise on days that you're tired or not feeling well? And I know kind of my approach, but Acelia, I wondered if you could share, like, how do you, like, when you're struggling, how do you still stay motivated to get up and do what you know you need to do?
I have my days and I have my moments. But at the end of the day, I know that if nobody else is going to do it for me, then who else is going to do it? So that's how I look at things, only because, say, if I take one day and I relax, then I'm going to probably need more days than that. So I try not to fall short on that. I just try to keep myself more motivated and know that there's a brighter road ahead of me. So I just literally just stay motivated and just think of positive things that keep me going. And how about for you, Lloyd?
That's really good. I appreciate that. My biggest struggle, honestly, is when I get sick. I can do fairly well when I feel healthy and I'm kind of in that rhythm. And then when I get sick, I feel like, maybe I'm on oral antibiotics, or last year I was on IVs. And then it feels like even if you get oral antibiotics for 2 weeks, and then it's like you hit the reset button. Like you were a couch potato for 4 months and your body doesn't even know what it's doing anymore. That's so discouraging. Oh, it's so frustrating, especially because you've worked so hard. And so I have to remind myself a lot, especially when I start, my CF clinic will tell me you can't go hard after you've been sick. You got to really ease into it, be kind to your body. And I just have to remember, I'm not going to get to healthy today, but I'm on a journey back to health if I'll just stick with it. So it's kind of what you were saying, Acelia, like I'm doing the right things and I'll get there. So don't be discouraged. I'm not going to stay where I am, but it's going to take a little bit to get where I need to be. So.
Absolutely, Lloyd. I agree with you. And the only reason why I say that is because growing up with my weight, and they would say, oh, you dropped too much weight, or your lungs is fighting an infection, you got to come into the hospital. And I'm like, well, oh my gosh, well, who's going to pay my bills? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? And it hindered me in a way, but at the end of the day, my health comes first. And now that I'm at that, time frame of my life where, hey, everything takes time. It's not going to happen right then and there, but you must be patient with yourself, because in order for you to do what you want to do, you have to heal yourself properly.
Yeah, that's really good. Really good. Okay, next question. How can we prevent disordered eating and or body image dissatisfaction, given that there's so much emphasis on nutrition, diet, weight gain, and or maintenance as part of CF care?
This is my favorite topic right now. So it's something that I've been trying to incorporate into our clinic in the last year and a half or so. And it's hard. It's hard because exactly like that question said, it's in everything, embedded in CF, embedded in history of CF. It's embedded in our culture, like our society. We talk about people's weights. We talk about people's diets and their bodies. We have grandmas commenting on the bodies of 5-year-olds. That doesn't need to happen. So it's kind of, this might be a longer answer than, but I'm very passionate about this topic because seeing peds and adults, I see so many adults who have such poor body image because they were just told as kids that your weight is one of the most important things about you. And then when that doesn't meet someone else's standards, that hurts, So it's kind of a hard thing. So we've really been trying to not talk about weight in clinic at all unless we need to. Like if it drops too much, if it goes up too much, like a lot. So we try not to talk about it at all unless we need to. It's just another vital. Like all vitals look fine. And then another part is go home and listen to how your family and your extended family talk about bodies and health in general. So you can go over to grandparents' house and the parents are looking in the mirror like, oh, my arms look so fat, or my arm, like, oh, you look so skinny, like just, advocate, like we're really trying not to talk about bodies anymore. Like you can comment me on something else, or you can comment my kid on something else. Really try and just take the emphasis away from bodies and weight in general in your life, like even outside of CF. And tell that to your clinic. Like I'm trying to improve my body image. I would like to not talk about my weight unless we really need to. Like we had, when I was trying to do this, I had an adult patient say, I just, I've been hearing about my weight my entire life. And I think I'm stuck where I'm at, and I'm okay with that. I would like to not talk about it at all unless I get below X amount of pounds, So, and we wrote that in our chart. We will not talk about weight unless you get below X amount of pounds. Okay, I know we're running out of time, but I also wanted to, I'm going to send some Instagram accounts, good Instagram accounts to follow, because everyone's on social media. And if you're on social media, you see the social media influencers, and there are a lot of bad social media influencers who can make you feel really bad about yourself because they're trying to like, look at me, I'm the, but not that they're all bad. Some of them are amazing. So go through your account, unfollow the ones that make you feel bad about yourself, and follow some ones that make you feel good about yourself, or that can help you retrain your mind to feel better about yourself and kind of like where you are in your body. Sorry, that was a really long response.
I loved it, Shannon. I was nodding along the whole time. I'm like, yeah.
No, that's really good. Okay, maybe last question, and then we'll wrap up. What are things you wish people knew but often misunderstood about exercise and gaining muscle? Jenny, I'm assuming you're going to start with that one, but what are things people, they misunderstand or you wish they knew going into it?
Well, like I've already been harping on this whole time, it takes time. It takes so much time, and patience. And I think that I just see a lot of, especially teenage boys, for some reason, they want gains and they want it now, and they are doing all kinds of stuff to get it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, please slow down. Like it's so good. It's good to have a goal, and it's good to want to gain muscle. I have no problem with any of those things. I just wish that people knew it takes time, and to give yourself the time to make it happen. And exercise in general too, it's a lifestyle. If it's not part of your lifestyle, it's not really happening, because it does need to be pretty consistent to have any effect in your life. And so if it is though, then you're going to see results.
Yeah, nice. Cool. Patience is a hard thing. I think, and that's probably not just CF people. I'm sure everybody, you want to start a workout routine and 2 days into it, want to feel like $1 million and look like $1 million. And that usually just doesn't happen. Usually you're so sore you can't even shampoo your own head because you can't lift your arm up there. All right. Let me just close with this. They gave me a script, so I get this part right. Thanks for being a part of this. I realize we may not have answered every question, but we did the best we could to get to most of them. Before you go, will you please fill out the satisfaction poll, which is under the poll tab on the right-hand side of your screen, right next to the session chat. You should see that. And then we've talked about a number of different resources. I know Shannon and Jenny both had different things. And the slides as well are all going to be available in the resource document found on the reception page. So feel free to head there, spend some time exploring the resources and download anything that you want to keep. And lastly, we just want to say thank you. We really appreciate you taking time to be with us, and we hope that this was helpful. And just go kick some butt. Let's go. Thanks.